Предлог in, местоположение внутри.
In the box.
В коробке.
In the box.
In the box.
In the box.
In a car.
В машине.
In a car.
In a car.
In a car.
In the garden.
В саду.
In the garden.
In the garden.
In the garden.
In the city.
В городе.
In the city.
In the city.
In the city.
In the sky.
В небе.
In the sky.
In the sky.
In the sky.
In a building.
В здании.
In a building.
In a building.
In a building.
In a newspaper.
В газете.
In a newspaper.
In a newspaper.
In a newspaper.
In a row.
В ряду.
In a row.
In a row.
In a row.
In a photograph.
На фотографии.
In a photograph.
In a photograph.
In a photograph.
In the mirror.
В зеркале.
In the mirror.
In the mirror.
In the mirror.
Предлог on, на поверхности.
On the table.
На столе.
On the table.
On the table.
On the table.
On the wall.
На стене.
On the wall.
On the wall.
On the wall.
On the floor.
На полу.
On the floor.
On the floor.
On the floor.
On the ceiling.
На потолке.
On the ceiling.
On the ceiling.
On the ceiling.
On a page.
На странице.
On a page.
On a page.
On a page.
On the sofa.
На диване.
On the sofa.
On the sofa.
On the sofa.
On the left.
Слева.
On the left.
On the left.
On the left.
On the right.
Справа.
On the right.
On the right.
On the right.
On a bus.
В автобусе.
On a bus.
On a bus.
On a bus.
On a train.
В поезде.
On a train.
On a train.
On a train.
Предлог at, точное место или
At the door.
у двери.
At the door.
At the door.
At the door.
At the top.
На вершине.
At the top.
At the top.
At the top.
At the bottom.
Внизу.
At the bottom.
At the bottom.
At the bottom.
At the bus stop.
На остановке.
At the bus stop.
At the bus stop.
At the bus stop.
At the end.
В конце.
At the end.
At the end.
At the end.
At work.
На работе.
At work.
At work.
At work.
At home.
Дома.
At home.
At home.
At home.
At a party.
На вечеринке.
At a party.
At a party.
At a party.
At the cinema.
В кино.
At the cinema.
At the cinema.
At the cinema.
At the airport.
В аэропорту.
At the airport.
At the airport.
At the airport.
Сравнение in, on, at.
He is in the car.
Он в машине.
He is in the car.
He is in the car.
He is in the car.
We are at the station.
Мы на станции.
We are at the station.
We are at the station.
We are at the station.
A crack in the wall.
Трещина в стене.
A crack in the wall.
A crack in the wall.
A crack in the wall.
She is at the sea.
Она на море.
She is at the sea.
She is at the sea.
She is at the sea.
He is in the sea.
Он в море.
He is in the sea.
He is in the sea.
He is in the sea.
He lives in New York.
Он живет в Нью-Йорке.
He lives in New York.
He lives in New York.
He lives in New York.
Предлоги движения. Куда?
Go into the room.
Войди я в комнату.
Go into the room.
Go into the room.
Go into the room.
The ball rolled down the hill.
Мяч скатился вниз с холма.
The ball rolled down the hill.
The ball rolled down the hill.
The ball rolled down the hill.
He ran to the finish line.
Он добежал до финиша.
He ran to the finish line.
He ran to the finish line.
He ran to the finish line.
Предлоги движения. Откуда? Через.
He came from Canada.
Он приехал из Канады.
He came from Canada.
He came from Canada.
He came from Canada.
Look through the window.
Посмотри через окно.
Look through the window.
Look through the window.
Look through the window.
We walked across the street.
Мы перешли через улицу.
We walked across the street.
We walked across the street.
We walked across the street.
They traveled around the world.
Они путешествовали вокруг света.
They traveled around the world.
They traveled around the world.
They traveled around the world.
The message came from him.
Сообщение пришло от него.
The message came from him.
The message came from him.
The message came from him.
Let's walk past the library.
Давай пройдем мимо библиотеки.
Let's walk past the library.
Let's walk past the library.
Let's walk past the library.
Другие важные предлоги места.
Under the bridge.
Под мостом.
Under the bridge.
Under the bridge.
Under the bridge.
Over the fence.
Через забор.
Over the fence.
Over the fence.
Over the fence.
Behind the tree.
За деревом.
Behind the tree.
Behind the tree.
Behind the tree.
Next to the bank.
Рядом с банком.
Next to the bank.
Next to the bank.
Next to the bank.
Between two houses.
Между двумя домами.
Between two houses.
Between two houses.
Between two houses.
Near the station.
Возле станции.
Near the station.
Near the station.
Near the station.
In front of the school.
Перед школой.
In front of the school.
In front of the school.
In front of the school.
Among the crowd.
Среди толпы.
Among the crowd.
Among the crowd.
Among the crowd.
Above the clouds.
Над облаками.
Above the clouds.
Above the clouds.
Above the clouds.
Below the surface.
Под поверхностью.
Below the surface.
Below the surface.
Below the surface.
Прилагательное плюс предлог.
Different from this one.
Отличается от этого.
Different from this one.
Different from this one.
Different from this one.
Responsible for the task.
Ответственный за задачу.
Responsible for the task.
Responsible for the task.
Responsible for the task.
Глагол плюс предлог.
To look at a picture.
Смотреть на картину.
To look at a picture.
To look at a picture.
To look at a picture.
To talk to a friend.
Говорить с другом.
To talk to a friend.
To talk to a friend.
To talk to a friend.
To depend on the weather.
Зависеть от погоды.
To depend on the weather.
To depend on the weather.
To depend on the weather.
To arrive at the hotel.
Прибыть в отель.
To arrive at the hotel.
To arrive at the hotel.
To arrive at the hotel.
To agree with you.
Согласен с тобой.
To agree with you.
To agree with you.
To agree with you.
To shout at him.
Кричать на него.
To shout at him.
To shout at him.
To shout at him.
To think about the future.
Думать о будущем.
To think about the future.
To think about the future.
To think about the future.
To ask for help.
Просить о помощи.
To ask for help.
To ask for help.
To ask for help.